Hello everyone, I'm back, and with the last video in the series on creative writing. So, just to begin with a quick recap, we discussed or spoke about what's creative writing, what's the history, and what you do once you've written stuff. Then, we spoke about what are the benefits of writing, what you gain out of it, and the methods of writing. The first discussion was on plot. Third video was on developing characters, and the fourth one and the last one is about settings and narration. Okay, remember what I'm talking about is probably a very short format of what's actually the ocean, and it's a drop in the ocean, and it's just to give you an eye opener of what is and how things are. Okay, beyond this, if anything needs to be discussed and debated, there are further many hours of discussion and debate required. So it's just that probably a drop that I'm trying to offer you. Because, even creative writing, it's very difficult to master the process. You keep on working at it. Eventually, someday you'll reach somewhere which may or may not be perfect. So back to today's session on setting and narration. So let's start with setting. So what's setting? Essentially, setting is a place where the story is based. And I believe the setting is also a very important part of the story. In fact, it's another character in the story. If you're able to set a story in a proper setting, it gives it a very different flavor and a unique power of absorbing the reader in it. So, for example, the story that we discussed about two girls meeting in Goa. Okay, they could be meeting anywhere in any metropolitan city. Okay, and going forward. But the reason I thought of Goa is because Goa is a character in itself. There's so much more to it than a big city. Okay, and if you're able to bring that nuance in it, that beauty of that combination of nature, culture, greenery, lifestyle being slow and steady, it adds on to the flavor of the story. Okay, grounds story in a particular part. Similarly, wherever you take the story, you take it to Delhi, you take it to Bombay, you take it to Mangalore, you take it to maybe Sundarbans, maybe take it to Jammu and Kashmir, wherever you are. If you're able to develop that character of the setting, what the place is, how's the weather, what is the culture, what are the people like, what do they eat, what is there to see, and blend it all into the story, the power of storytelling increases many-fold. So, for example, again, in the story that we are discussing, you start off at Miramar Beach and you talk about what is the impact of heavy rains on a beach like that. Not many would know, but many may have seen. So, you will be able to give them something new. Similarly, if those two together go on looking for Goa, searching for Goa, and you want to bring out an element of Goa which nobody has seen, a non-touristy circuit, you will be able to bring out something that people have not heard of. So that's the power of setting. Bring it out, use it effectively. Okay, but remember that requires a lot of research. Okay, Goa may be easy because you are based in Goa, but if you have to believe and put a setting, let's say in some northeastern part of the country, which seldom people know. Okay, let's say you want to base the story in Shillong, which is also called the Scotland of the East. How would you go about figuring out what's happening there? What's the temperature and weather like? That will require you to research and make your notes about the place, setting, characters, what's there in it, the food, the culture, the people, the markets, what kind of cars are there on the road, what kind of roads are there, okay, how many months a year it rains, so on and so on. So anything and everything that you can use in the story should be well researched and put forward. For example, a lot of times we see that people in let's talk about movies. And Yashraj films were there, and Yashraj films more often than not take their main leads to Europe for a song shoot. If a story is based in the late 40s and maybe early 50s and you go to Europe for shooting, do you think you'll find the same kind of location that we see now? Maybe not. Europe was recovering from World War II, so it was a far more disastrous situation there. Far more hunger, poverty, disaster, destruction. So that will come out only when you do research or you have common sense or your knowledge of history. So all that can be used to build that power of setting. Let's say tomorrow you want to build a story about Calcutta. What will you bring out about Calcutta? Okay, there's so many things you could do. There's a river in there, there's a Howrah Bridge there, trams are still there operational, India's first metro was there. You could pick up any of the food of Calcutta. Okay, you could probably take on anything. Let's say the two girls, they did not meet in Goa but they met in Calcutta. Okay, so you could set the entire thing during the biggest festival that they have, Durga Puja, or you could set up the entire thing during Christmas. Christmas time, Calcutta is decked up like a bride. Park Street, it's one of the prettiest places of Calcutta during Christmas. Okay, or you could talk about the Ganges and the boat rides, or the romance of the trams and the old world buildings. Anything. You research, you create a setting, and talk about it in a way it adds on to the story. That's where you actually add on to the level of storytelling that you're building. And that's the power of setting. Coming to the last part, which is narration. What is narration? Narration actually is the voice who is narrating the story. Okay? Come to think of it, you could narrate a story in third person completely, where an outside person is observing and narrating the story. You could narrate in first person, where the character itself is narrating as they saw the story. Okay, you could use combination of two. You could use many other formats. Okay, but you have to decide how do you use narration. So, for example, if you want to bring out the deepest emotions of a particular character, you have to go in first person, because in third person the narrator is outside the human being. He can't get into the human being and then narrate the emotions. So first person is useful in talking about a person's emotions. But then the moment you are talking about a situation in which that person is not present, let's say if I'm right now in Delhi and I have to narrate a story or an incident which is based in Lucknow. I'm not in Lucknow. That cannot be in first person. You have to shift to third person. Okay, so that's how you have to keep on combining first and third to make the narration fluid. Remember, if you stick to one particular format of narration, either first or third, it makes it very monotonous and boring. So you should keep on using the two. I've categorically left out second person because second person is a very difficult format to handle and not usually preferred in normal storytelling. You could, if you want to experiment, you could use, but it's a very difficult format, so hence kept out. In narration, there are other formats that you should always use. For example, dialogues. You have to have dialogues where two people are talking. The two people talking cannot be explained in third person. It just takes the entire joy of listening to the conversation from it. So when two people are talking, always try and make it into a conversation, dialogue exchange. Second, soliloquy, where I could be present in the middle of 1,000 people and yet I'm talking to my mind or talking in my mind, thinking and thinking aloud without talking. That could be narrated. Very powerful tool of expressing about a character's feelings when they are in a particular format of gathering. Okay. Similarly, there are a few others which you could research and use, but these four are the most powerful ones that are typically used all the time, and you could actually use them for any of your favorite formats. The other element in narration sometimes used is personification, where you entirely shift the narrative format from a human being to a non-human being. Let's say, for example, this particular mug. This mug could be made to narrate the story of how I conceptualize the videos and I'm bringing the videos to you from its perspective. Similarly, if you have a wedding ring talking about the wedding, or you could have, let's say, a house talking about the people living in it, adds to it. The story takes a different level, different charm, and it really helps the reader in connecting with the author. So yeah, in short, that was something called narration for you. So that brings us to the end of this small set of videos. Just do a quick recap again. Okay. Creative writing is a form of expression that we do typically to bring out what our point of view, what our expressions and emotions are. Very useful in trying to unbottle yourself, express yourself, and bring out your deepest desires and emotions and feel lighter. Okay. Once you have done creative writing, you could either print a book, write a blog, send it to social media pages that you have, or send it for publication in a journal or a magazine. Okay. And of the various forms of creative writing, which includes poetry, prose, essays, columns, letters, monographs, etc., etc., I discussed short stories and stories and how to write them. Okay, four important points to be taken care of: the plot, the characters, setting, and the narration. If you have these four sorted out, the story is there. A plot, remember, it's a chain of events or a sequence of events that you need to be putting in, which have a coherent beginning, coherent end, and characters moving through them one by one. Characters, they need to have depth, they need to have all descriptions that you need to think of about characters and the conflict. Setting, description of the place you're building the story in with the adequate amount of research. Narration, a good combination of first person, third person, dialogue, soliloquy, personification, and so on and so forth. So all this put together, you can come up with a wonderful story that you're ready to feel proud of and put out there for your readers to read. You can get in touch with me anytime you want to through Jacinta for any queries that you have. And just to remind, I run a publishing house called Readomania, and we've done 100 plus books. So please go to Amazon, search for Readomania, and see if you like something and pick them up. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead. Bye bye. Take care.